when she was running the Apple Valley chapter of the American Red Cross. That's when I met her. And now she's taken a new position after spending 9 years at the museum, the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. And you're going to transition from the job you have to executive director. So congratulations on that, first of all, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such an honor and I'm so excited. So yeah, I'm starting almost immediately.
Almost. Well, that's easy to do when you're already there, right?
That's right. You know, changing offices is the big haul with this one.
Well, let's go back a little bit. I mentioned that. So I met you in 2008 when I worked in community service. Well, I work in community service still, but when I was officially working in that capacity and helped you promote some events and different things that were going on with the Red Cross at the time. When did you start at the Red Cross?
You know, I started not long before I met you. It was midway through 2007. So I was the Red Cross was a completely new organization to me. It was my first high-level director job. So I was really getting my head around what that role looked like, what this new organization looked like. So you got to be one of my first people that I grabbed onto. We had a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I was new to the job as well, and so we raised some money and brought awareness to a lot of good causes. So I always appreciated the time I got to work with businesses and local nonprofits to help spread the word in our community. And so that's a lot of what the show is about. Sometimes I get to talk to local people like yourself. So let's talk about then, so your education led you to your position at the Red Cross, and tell us about that a bit.
Yeah, so my education, my early education was in arts and English. And so I started off as a pathway of arts administration. And I just loved bringing community together over arts and culture. When I moved to the Wenatchee Valley in 2003, arts organizations were pretty far and few between. So I would get involved in a volunteer sense, but really knew I needed to build up my leadership skills. And almost about the same time I went back to school for nonprofit management, I also got a position at the Red Cross. And that was a pretty, fortuitous opportunity there, that I got to go to school for a year, finish up some graduate work in nonprofit management. It was a program that was developed for executives. So they'd have you in for a weekend and then you go for 2 weeks and then you come back. And so we get to put into play everything that we were learning. And that, I think, set a really good foundation for me for that first year. I didn't have no preconceived notions of what I should be doing, really was open to learning, had some incredible professors that helped me learn, and really solidified for me that nonprofit industry was where I wanted to be. And being able to help lead and shape organizations was something that really excited me.
And how long did you work at the Red Cross?
I worked there for just over 7 years. I left late in 2013 when I came to the Wenatchee Valley Museum.
And so what do you feel like you took from, I have a lot of friends who are either in education right now, getting their education to work in nonprofits. There was a blossoming of nonprofits leading from the last couple of years of what we've all been through, trying to fill the need in different areas of life in general. And so what advice or what kind of things did you take from that first experience? I mean, a lot of it, we could call it building a resume because you take it from one position to the next. But I think that the nonprofit space is a little different because it does depend on what's happening in the community and what the needs are, and then learning how to fill those. So what were you able to take from one position to the next?
Yeah, just a level of adaptability. I mean, you think that when you're in disaster management, you've got to be incredibly adaptable to begin with. You never know if there's going to be a fire on the hillside or a flood down in town or a call in the middle of the night. And you're having to make decisions on the fly. Hopefully we've put in a lot of training getting ready for those disasters, but it's that confidence to know I'm making the right decision and we're moving forward, and there isn't a lot of time to doubt that. And that level of confidence that I built up in my decision making, and the importance of putting a solid plan in place beforehand so that you could move on the fly and be adaptable, I think transfers well into any nonprofit organization. You know, it's a must in disasters, but time and time again, I've come back to that. Even putting on a gallery showing or having a big event with 300 people at the museum, it's that, do we have a solid plan in place? And then we need to make decisions on the fly and be adaptable to a changing circumstance.
With your work at the American Red Cross, it was always about being prepared for what might happen. And then what I've noticed just in the work that I've done with the museum in the past with an exhibit that I had on display there with my friend Melissa Kennedy, our History Project Museum exhibit, was just how far in advance things are planned at the museum. And as you know, what we say about plans, you know, you can plan them as best you can, but that's a big difference. So I would think, I mean, is that, that's part of the job, is making sure you have space filled. I mean, sometimes you all are a year or so out, depending on the display.
We are. I mean, and we're having to make plans. Some of them are for the next year or two when it comes to events. Some are next 5 years when it comes to exhibits. When it comes to our collection, that's a plan in perpetuity. We're going to take in an item. We need to know that we can store it and preserve it and interpret it. And that our plan is that we're going to keep it in best shape possible. And that's forever if we can. So it's a whole different level of how we have to think about time and how we have to think about plans and really future proofing the museum. And that's something that you just is this ongoing, it's thoughtful work, it's engaging work, it stretches your mind of what you think you shouldn't be able to do. But it does push you to what are some things that an audience can want 5 years from now, an object is going to need 30 years from now. They're interesting puzzles to work through.
Well, let's take a break and let's talk specifically about your work at the museum. You've been there for 9 years now. So I'm curious. I have a few questions about your transition into this new position and what we can expect from our museum in the years ahead, and even just the weeks and months as you transition. So we'll be back. We're talking with Marriah Thornock. We're talking with Marriah Thornock. We've been talking about her previous position at the Red Cross here in Wenatchee. And now you've been at the museum for 9 years. So this is not new to you, but you've had some ideas kind of brewing. Had you intended to stick around at the museum and work into this position of executive director, which you've just been recently named?
Yeah, you know, I hadn't had a real timeline for what that looked like, but I did feel like the museum was going to be my final home, or I'd hoped that it would be my final home, and that this position one day would be a place that I would land. I was in a transitional period in my life when I left the Red Cross and came to the museum. It was really wanting to get back to those things that feed my soul, which is arts and culture and connecting communities and exploring big ideas. And so I just wanted to get back to that world. I've been very fortunate to be able to move through the museum with lots of different positions, getting to know lots of different departments, learning a lot, things I never would have thought that I'd know before, like the difference between how you preserve a piece of paper versus cloth, and you know how you hang a 150-pound painting. And so just things that I find intriguing and have made my world a little bit richer. But my hope is that this is one day where I'd end up.
And then when you started working at the museum, so you started in a completely different position, but you were also, you mentioned, in a different position in your life, and personally you were having children. So you had a lot of flexibility coming in.
I did. So, and that was a lot of wanting to, I loved the Red Cross. I loved the people that were there. I loved the mission that we were serving. But it's a 24-hour job. You never know when that phone's going to ring. We provided service.
I've been with you socially when it has rang. So I know exactly what you're talking about, sharing space with you.
Yeah. So, you know, so having a new family that I'm wanting to also cultivate, it made me think about what are the important things in my life, and that we could still be volunteers at the Red Cross. But if I wanted to, what did I want to immerse my children in and my husband along the way with? And that really was getting back to the arts. So the museum was that great transition spot for me.
Well, and that's another question I have. A lot of people, you know, if they're not familiar with the museum, we'll talk a little bit more about what they can expect when they visit there. You do a lot of programs for kids. You have a lot of things specific to kids. things that aren't necessarily specific to kids that are just part of your role working there. How has it enriched your girls' lives, do you think, your daughters?
Yeah, I think that they've gotten to get up close and personal to some things that you normally wouldn't. They'll come to work with me as we're taking apart an exhibit and really get to see, you know, 10,000-year-old fossils and get to talk to the curator directly who's putting that display together. They'll come behind the scenes and help me put together packets for programmings that we're putting on. They just get to have a different layer of involvement. And I don't think for them it seems to have taken any magic away. They're pretty proud that, when they come back to an event and they pick up an art kit, they know what's going to be in that art kit and they get to tell people they helped put it together. So for me, it's pretty exciting. I use them as my test crew too. So we're just
Right. If it'll, yeah, right.
we're
That makes
redoing
sense.
Coyote's Corner, and they were okay. If you walk in here, girls, what do you want to see? And I brought their friends along, and they have amazing ideas, and we're going to implement some of them. They were really cool. The ball pit that they wanted were not, but
Darn it. You have to go somewhere else for that. So then let's talk about that. What are some of the ideas? What are the things that you've been thinking about as you've been working toward this position? What kind of changes can we expect, or what kind of improvements, or just big ideas that you'll have the opportunity to implement now? What's
yeah.
the first couple that you really feel like are your priority?
So the first couple, one actually I started before I became executive director, and I'm excited to see through, is the redesign of Coyote's Corner. That's our children's interactive space. I wanted to build a space that children walked into and felt like it was really made for them, that they got to explore in an imaginative way, in a play-based way. And so we're going through several different phases, and our first one will wrap up at the end of this summer. But that's one that is really important to me, that we have a safe, fun indoor space for kids throughout the valley to come to. The next one is big exhibits from outside of the area. We're bringing one from OMSI, which is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry in Portland, this fall, which is a children's museum exhibit. And I'm working with our curator to bring some more from the Smithsonian in the next couple of years. They've got some great traveling exhibits that I'm excited about. And then there's some programs. I'd love to be able to bring the community in and have them engage with our local artists and our local historians. And so the thing that's brewing in the back of my head that's still a dream is some kind of artist in residency program, opening our makerspace up so it has drop-in sessions that allows the community to dive into their own passions, not just come and witness them and talk about them, but actually take their own role in creating things and bringing them more into their lives.
When you start to take the steps to put these things into place, how much community support do you rely on? And I'm talking about financial support. How do you go about the funding for some of these big ideas, and what's important for the viewer to know about how they can help?
Yes, so our funding is always it's always a multi-tiered approach. I'm constantly looking for state and foundation grants to help with some seed money and to give us some stability. But being a member to the museum directly supports these kind of programs. It supports bringing these exhibits in, and financial donations make up a third of the museum's funding level. And so those donations, whether it's a direct one for a program, we're able to provide quite a few scholarships to our summer camps that start next summer, or next week actually. And that's all through local donations that are providing those scholarships. But then the general donations as well allow us to continue to make upgrades to our exhibits, continue to provide programming, and give us a chance to explore some new ideas.
When you, well, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about, we've talked about your future plans and ideas but let's talk about what people can engage in right now, what's happening at the museum now and in the very near future. We're talking with Marriah Thornock. She is now the executive director at the Wenatchee Valley Museum. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back talking with Marriah Thornock. She's now the executive director of the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. She came to the museum after her work at the American Red Cross, the Wenatchee Valley the Apple
The Apple
Valley Apple Valley chapter of the American Red Cross. I knew there was an apple in there somewhere. And that's how we met many years ago. And we still work with in the nonprofit space. And one of the things that I wanted to share is you've been at the museum for 9 years. And you intended to finish out your career there. So now you're the executive director and you have all these ideas you've had in mind for a while. And I'm excited to see what you do with it. I also want to know right now what's happening at the museum, that people could utilize and visit and expect to see when they visit during this time now in the present.
Yeah, so summer and fall is always a busy time with the museum, and that's certainly kicking into shape. Our summer camps start next week. We have geology, bus tours, and history tours starting up in September. But a really special thing that we have coming up in September is a children's museum traveling exhibit from the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. It's called the Zoo and You. And if any of your listeners remember, in 2019, we brought a children's museum exhibit from Boston. It was called My Sky, and it was a pretty well-loved exhibit. We had a lot of return guests come back and bring their kids over and over again, and you can expect that same high-quality, fun, really durable, so kids can climb all over it and have some fun exhibit. But this one dives into the microbes and the bacteria and the germs that live in our body, some that are good that, we can't live without. Having great gut health is something that we all talk about these days. Some of them are not so good, and we have to learn ways to keep ourselves healthy. But the thing I really enjoy about this exhibit is it's a multi-dimensional exhibit. It's interactive in several different ways. So there's going to be the opportunity to have kids explore the way in which a microbe goes through your body through a marble maze, or they can explore what it's like what good gut health looks like through a green screen activity of a weather report of the bacteria in our body. So some kids are really hands-on, and some kids it's technology that sparks their interest. And this exhibit really has all of that. It's a bilingual exhibit, which our last one wasn't. So that was really important for us this time, that everybody in our valley has a chance to come and understand what's going on in the exhibit, that the level of interest is there for kids as little as 2 and 3 in the toddler area, up to the grown-ups that they bring right along with them. I think should have a good time.
When you talk about that, when you said there's stuff that they can jump and climb all over, I was thinking how a lot of people think a museum is a place you go and you're quiet like a library and you can't touch anything. And there are some things you can't touch and there are some rules you have to follow. But for parents, especially during this time of year when they're trying to figure out what are we going to do with their kids, and it's either raining in July when it's not usually supposed to be, or it's super hot, which, they're trying to get in from out of the sun. So that is the thing that parents don't realize, right? That this is a place to bring your children.
Absolutely. I mean, my favorite days at the museum are when we have field trips and there's 150 kids stomping all throughout it. You can hear them coming down the hall. They're excited to see the train. They're laughing at the games that they're playing. It's not a quiet place. And there are definitely people that want quiet reflection, and there are good days to come for that. But my favorite days are when it's noisy and fun and there's a lot of people there enjoying themselves.
Some of the events I've enjoyed most in our community, I don't think there's any better date night than, either a nonprofit event where, there's fundraising and nice dinners and everyone looks so lovely in their dresses and ties, suits and ties, or things like I've been to at the museum. So what kind of events do you have planned or on the calendar?
Yeah, so coming back in fuller swing to kind of the pre-pandemic levels is Night at the Museum. And that's that event where it's all throughout the museum. It's grown-ups only. It's music throughout all the different gallery spaces. We're having different bands come, cocktails, wine tasting, beer, cider, lots of great food. And you just get to explore the museum and listen to great musicians and have some really great food. Everybody looks lovely. It's so fun. Everybody all dressed up, and it's our version of the Met Gala, but I think a little bit more fun because you get to play like kids, but have tasty treats the whole time.
Tasty treats and wine and spirits will get people to show up, right?
Yes, and it's all local too. I mean, we have local distilleries that come in and make the most fantastic cocktails.
So then the other thing that a topic I want to bring up, we have about just a few more minutes, wanted to talk about volunteers and how your organization needs them and how you utilize them and what someone watching who has volunteer time, what they would do there for you.
Yeah, volunteering at the museum, there's so many different aspects of the museum that I'm hard pressed to find that there isn't a spot for anybody. If you enjoy kids, we have docents that take kids through field trips or help out at our summer camps. If you enjoy just working with the public, we use volunteers up at our front desk. If you like to be behind the scenes, we have people that help out in collections, people that help put our exhibits together. We have admin support. We have a staff. We have a good sized staff. I have an incredible team. There's about 12 of us right now. But to keep that place hopping, it's 40,000 square feet of fun. It takes about 150 volunteers throughout the year to make that place go. And we're in desperate need of volunteers right now. We curtailed our activities during the pandemic, as everybody did, and moved a lot of our stuff online. And so it meant that a lot of people also stopped volunteering with us. And we're in the middle of bringing those volunteers back, but we're also finding new ways that we can use volunteers. And so new opportunities are opening up.
What do you have? When I've gone to the museum, and I've been going there since I've moved here in 2004, I've seen some of the volunteers there for a long time.
Yeah.
So some of them come and they stay. So if you're looking for something that you really want to engage in, sometimes people want to volunteer different areas in the community and do different things. And there's certainly a need for that and filling in where people need it. But some of your volunteers, what's the longest volunteer you have right now? Who's been there the longest? Do you know?
I'm trying to think. I think there's a woman named Billy Holt. She's probably been there about 30 years, 20, 30 years.
Yeah. I think she's the one I'm thinking of. But I mean, you do have people come and stay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think of myself as the old guard on the staff, but I am when it comes to some of our volunteers. And they could tell you about, what it was like when when my husband came through in fourth grade, they were probably leading those tours and saw what was happening. So, it's great because they have this history, we're a place of history. We want to collect history, and our volunteers give us some of the best history.
And when the kids come back year after year, it's kind of like them getting to see those students that came through. They get to see them grow up. It's very cool. Okay, last bit. Where do people find out more information about your calendar of events, how they can volunteer? Where's the best place for them to go, and how do they navigate that?
Yeah, there's two places they should check out. They should definitely like us on Facebook. We're putting stuff up all the time. We have a lot of great videos. You can watch programmings if you want, do activities, see what's coming up. But our website is where you really want to go to become part of the museum. You can buy tickets there. You can get a membership, and a couple of our memberships have these awesome reciprocal programs. So if you're a member at the museum here, you also get free entry into places like the Pacific Science Center and the Burke Museum and the Flight Museum. So all of that stuff should be found on our website, and that's WenatcheeValleyMuseum.org. I'm
excited for you. And, we were talking before the show, my son's all grown now, so the kids part is done. But I hope that by having brought him there the times that I did, that it'll instill the importance of taking his children there someday as well. And, there's stuff to enjoy, like we said, for the adults to go to those dress up events and get to see our friends and our peers and our colleagues. So thank you for providing that space. I'm excited for you to make it exactly how you see it in your mind and bring it to fruition. So congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I look forward to us having fun down there. So Night at the Museum is coming up pretty soon. We should go hang out. I will, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Marriah. Thank you.